The best values in fantasy each year, in my opinion, are defined by drastic changes. None of us are actually asking this question. What if Drake May is good? No one's even talking about that possibility. Like,
come on,
actually, what if Drake May is good this year, right? Last year, no one was expecting CJ Stroud to be a superstar in his rookie season. The people who bet on the Texans wide receiver core as a flyer were rewarded last year. Last year, Nico Collins was a wide receiver 58 in ADP. Tank Dell was a wide receiver 78. We got 6 wide receiver sleepers that you should draft in fantasy this year. Hey, we got a like goal of 100 likes on today's video. Do us a favor, help us get there. Hit that like button and subscribe. No time wasted. I'll go straight into one of my favorite wide receiver sleepers this year. That is Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
My wide receiver 43. On Underdog ESPN Sleeper, he's ranging from 59 to 65. So I am significantly higher on him right now than consensus on all these apps. Look, is Brandon Cooks the sexy pick now? No, he's not. He's not the sexy pick, but I think he is probably the right pick for you. He suffered an MCL sprain to start the season last year, his first year with the Cowboys, and that kept him out of game. He wasn't really healthy until after the bye week. So if you look at his involvement in this offense, it's night and day from weeks 1 to 6. Then after the bye week, from weeks 8 to 18, you can see obviously the points per game skyrocket up. In the first 6 weeks, he was a wide receiver 75. From weeks 8 to 18, he was a wide receiver 19. And top 24 finishes, if you look at the percentage of his games where he finished top 24, just 20% in weeks 1 to 6, 45% of the time he finished top 24 in weeks 8 to 18. And what do we think about this offense? Like, how is it going to function in 2024? Well, I can tell you what they did in 2023. They threw the ball more than any team in the NFL. And they made zero effort this offseason to improve their running back room. They lost Tony Pollard in free agency. They didn't draft a single running back, even though they had every opportunity to do so.
Yes.
They brought back the ghost of Zeke Elliott and career backup Rico Dowdle. They added no wide receiver of note, and they lost Michael Gallup. Oh, and Dak Prescott's on a contract year. So Brandon Cooks, I think, is one of my favorite sleeper wide receivers in 2024. I mean, I really think there's a potential top, 30 season out there for Brandon Cooks this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Love Brandon Cooks coming into this year. All right, going into my first sleeper wide receiver, Michael Wilson. Somebody that I am really excited about, and for 3 reasons. Let me tell you why, okay? First of all, Kyler Murray is back. Full swing, full season. The community completely disrespecting Kyler Murray and forgetting what he has done in 2022 and 2021, finishing as a top 5 quarterback in those 2 years in a points per game basis. He's produced multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers in Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. And keep in mind, and I'll get to this a little bit later, Kyler Murray and Wilson only played 4 games last year. But also this role that Michael Wilson is projected to be going into. Okay, they no longer have Hollywood Brown. He's with the Chiefs. Rondale Moore is now with the Falcons. Wide receiver 1 is Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson, wide receiver 2. And then wide receiver 3 is Zay Jones. But what's exciting is that when I was doing my research and I found, shout out to Coach Speak Index, that I'm loving their research right now and their resource. And this is what Jonathan Gannon had to say on Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson is a 3-position guy. He's fast and explosive and is tough to cover. And if you actually listen to that interview, you can see how he was talking about his lineups and how he can be getting a little bit more creative. But also, let's look back at the production in 2023 that we saw on the field. We originally saw Wilson break out in weeks 4 against the San Francisco 49ers. But with Kyler Murray in the second half of the season, let's be honest, he had 2 goose eggs in weeks 15 and 16, which was terrible. But he finished off the season in 17 and 18, scoring literally identical fantasy points, 15.5 fantasy points in week 17 and 18 against the Philadelphia Eagles and the Seattle Seahawks. Michael Wilson, if you average out all the Underdog, ESPN Sleeper, and even my rankings, he's averaging wide receiver 77 currently. And I feel pretty confident to say that he can return better than wide receiver 77 as potential flex option. And just keep in mind, as I hand it off to Zach, these are guys that we're hoping to be flex options. Okay, these are not going to be breaking out and going to be top 12 guys. So keep in mind when you listen to these takes. My second player we'll talk about in a second, but I got to let you know that people are playing fantasy right now. You don't have to wait until your home league drafts. Not at all. You can get in real drafts right now, real tournaments for real money at underdogfantasy.com. If you haven't signed up yet, use the promo code LAND. We're going to match your deposit all the way up to $250 at 50%. So that means you can get $125 for free on us
just by using our code. But hey, maybe best ball tournaments aren't your thing. Maybe you like player props because I got them over on Underdog Fantasy as well. Whatever sport, you're into, whatever you want to bet on, you can 5x, 10x, 20x your money. Sometimes they got special discounts, to get you rolling in the pick'ems category.
Exactly.
But my second favorite sleeper this year, if you were to ask me, who do you think is this year's Jayden Reed? Well, I would say Jermaine Burton of the Cincinnati Bengals. I got him as my wide receiver 50 in my rankings. He is wide receiver 70 plus on all of the platforms. This is the cheapest buy-in on a very high-powered passing offense. Every indication from what the Bengals have done this offseason is that they're going to throw the ball a lot in 2024. Joe Mixon was traded to Houston. In the last 2 years, even with Joe Mixon on the team, this team has been top 10 in passing attempts per game, and they're averaging 37 passing attempts per game in that span. And I believe Burton is going to play an important role from day one. That is the Tyler Boyd role, who they let go in free agency, and he signed with the Titans. In the Burrow Chase era, Tyler Boyd has averaged 92 targets, 10.1 PPR points per game per season. The difference is this team is likely to, I feel like they're actively going to look past the Higgins era. What could Jermaine Burton be for us? What is his capacity? How much of the target share can we really give Jermaine Burton? So his limits will be tested, because I think this team is already thinking post Higgins, and Burton could be a big part of that. Whereas with Boyd, his role was very defined. He was already an older player. The ceiling had already been met. And as for T. Higgins, if he can't stay healthy, that's great for Jermaine Burton. If he does stay healthy, do they trade him in season? I don't know, but if they do, that could be huge for a guy like Jermaine Burton. So the way that Jayden Reed and Rashee Rice's role grew in the 2023 season, I could see the same thing happen for Jermaine Burton in 2024. He really is one of my favorite last picks in fantasy right now.
Yeah, love the opportunity that he's going to be taking over that Tyler Boyd role. So I completely back that with Jermaine Dupri. Shout out to him. All right, my second guy here, Shakira, Khalil Shakir. There's
baby, when you talk like that.
Come on. There's no question that Curtis Samuel, in my eyes, is easily the wide receiver one. I know there's a lot of conversation of Keon Coleman. Dalton Kincaid is number one target. Then it's Curtis Samuel as number one. Then I think it's up for grabs. Okay, and I think when you look at the ADP, when you see what all these guys are part, there's really only a 3 spots difference, specifically with Curtis Samuel and Shakira. And I just want to get a part of this offense, and I think that's what's exciting about this. So if I can't get my hands on Curtis Samuel, Shakira is only 3 spots later in the ADP, and I'm willing and the average, and I'm willing to go out and try and get him. And this Bills' new offense, there's 2 key players that are no longer on this team that left a lot of opportunities and vacant targets. That's Stephon Diggs. He's with the Texans. He left over 140 targets this past year. Gabe Davis, now with the Jags, averaging 75 targets in his career with the Buffalo Bills. That was 215 opportunities that are vacant that's going to be spread out. And we saw Joe Brady, when Joe Brady took over, Shakira got a little bit more involved in this offense. Now, the numbers may not look sexy, but what we do know is that Josh Allen can produce multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers. And Shakira, you can see the split with before Joe Brady and then after Joe Brady, which after Joe Brady is weeks 11 to 18. You see a little bit of an uptick in receptions and targets and yards, even if 2.6 fantasy points more. And the snap percentages, I think, is tremendous. 38% versus 69% with Joe Brady. And once again, going into this year with him, is that going to open up? Because Keon Coleman is not that big of an issue for me. So just trying to get my hands in any way in the honey pot for the Buffalo Bills as I can going into this year.
No, I absolutely love it. I mean, trying to get a cheap buy-in on a high passing volume offense, which we should see that in Buffalo again.
Yeah.
It'll be different. It won't be the same offense, but I think Shakir is a great pick. All right, Pop Douglas.
Pop.
I really think we're overlooking Pop Douglas. My wide receiver 56. Again, if you average out those 3 sites, he's around wide receiver 70 plus. To be honest, give me Jalen Polk or Pop Douglas. If one goes before the other, I will take the second, right? So if it's Jalen Polk, if it's Pop Douglas, I want those guys. If you average out their ADP right now, Polk is wide receiver 70 across those 3 sites. Pop Douglas is wide receiver 71. I like Javon Baker too. I feel like he's more of a stash in Dynasty. I don't think he's going to start from day one. I think you'll have Pop Kendrick Bourne and Polk starting from day one. And Kendrick, is coming off that ACL. So we have to keep in mind that there could be more opportunities for Douglas and Polk here in 2024. And Pop was the only bright spot of this team. He became a starter from week 7 onwards. And, almost 7 targets per game. He was really, Ramondre was a letdown. Zeke was a letdown. The quarterback play was a letdown. But Pop Douglas was the one who stood out. Yeah. And Jacoby Brissett instantly becomes the best quarterback that Pop Douglas has ever played with. And none of us are actually asking this question. What if Drake May is good? No one's even talking about that possibility. Like,
come on,
actually, what if Drake May is good this year, right? Last year, no one was expecting CJ Stroud to be a superstar in his rookie season. People wrote him off because he was an Ohio State quarterback. That was an echo chamber opinion. Yes. He was an Ohio State quarterback, and he threw an interception in his first preseason game. The people who bet on, the Texans wide receiver core as a flyer were rewarded last year. Last year, Nico Collins was a wide receiver 58 in ADP. Tank Dell was a wide receiver 78. The best values in fantasy each year, in my opinion, are defined by drastic changes. You're not going to find a more drastic change than the Patriots, right? From last year to this year, Bill Belichick is not the GM, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, obviously a new quarterback room, new wide receivers. I'll take as much Jalen Polk and Pop Douglas as I can get in 2024. It's literally no risk to your team to draft them. And again, what if Drake May is actually really good? Because you could be having like this player no one's talking about that could be a consistent player for your fantasy team.
Yeah, I completely agree. Love Pop Douglas there. And talking about drastic changes on a team, for my last player here is Quentin Johnson. I know people don't love this name, and I know people aren't necessarily excited, but we have to be honest with ourselves. Last year for Quentin was terrible. He had every opportunity to be successful with an elite quarterback. Obviously, Mike Williams goes down, Keenan Allen goes down. He doesn't take those opportunities. He doesn't make the clutch plays, right? He fumbles the bag essentially with everything that he could have gotten, in a plate for him going into last year. But the value is there. No question, Lamb McConkey is going to be the wide receiver 1 on this team. But what I keep hearing is that Josh Palmer is the wide receiver 2. And kind of similar to, the Pop Douglas takes and these takes that we've been talking about all this video, you're getting the cheapest guy on a high-powered offense, at least my expectations of a high-powered offense, even though it's going to be more of a run-heavy. I get it. But Justin Herbert is a fantasy-relevant or a quarterback that can produce fantasy-relevant wide receivers. And there's hope and belief from the coaching staff for Quentin Johnston, right? Jim Harbaugh's here. Greg Roman's here. Another year with Justin Herbert. It's a clean slate. And when you look at it, once again, shout out to Speed Coach Index. You look at what the GM has said about Quentin Johnston. I said this multiple times. Jim Harbaugh knows exactly what Quentin Johnson can do because he's played him in the college football playoffs, caught 463 yards and a touchdown. He knows how Quentin Johnson can and should be utilized in an offense. Not only that, Greg Roman says we want to get the ball to him quick underneath routes, catch and runs, which he excelled at in TCU, and they didn't actually do that last year with the Los Angeles Chargers, where he was just more of a deep ball threat or trying to get him to be more of a nuanced route runner. That's not his role. Quentin Johnson, and once again, quick underneath catch and run type of routes. And that's exciting when you see the new head coaching staff saying, we believe in Quentin. They go out, they get Joel Oltz, and they get Lamb McConkey in the second round and believe in Quentin Johnson could potentially be a role player going into this year. And the value is phenomenal right now.
Yeah, QJ is interesting. Just like we've been talking about, trying to get on good offenses for cheap and seeing what happens. And I do like that they recognize how to actually deploy him in an offense. Yeah. He isn't Mike Williams. You shouldn't have replaced Mike Williams with Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnson is very good after the catch. Mike Williams is your one-on-one ball winner. That's not Quentin Johnson's game. It should be because he's huge, but that's not his game, right? So I am interested to see if they right the wrongs of the previous staff. But obviously, Quentin's got to catch the damn ball. So let's see. But we appreciate y'all big time. Thanks for watching. Let us know who your sleeper wide receiver is down below. Subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Hold up. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.